Stories that are untold, underreported, and all-out inspirational. Carey Pena reports.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carey Pena. Thank you so much for listening to Carey Pena Reports on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. And for watching us on Facebook and YouTube, you can always see all of our shows at inspiredmedia360.com. Today, we're talking about taking a leap of faith. And in studio with us is a very beautiful lady who has quite a story to share, Darlene Keller-Price. Dar, thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
It's great to see you. And you put up a post on Facebook that really caught my attention. You said, and it was a picture of you and another lady, and you say, "My wonderful sister Val from Chicago. It took us 72 years to meet. I love her so much." So the story we're going to be telling today is about the leap of faith you took when you went on Ancestry, when you went on 23andMe, and you got some messages out of the blue that really have now connected you to your biological family. So you were adopted, and you had a wonderful family that adopted you.
Absolutely.
So always knew you were adopted?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Did you feel that you were missing something in not knowing your biological family?
Well, I think because, Carey, my folks were so wonderful when I was young. You know, you're worried about the next football game and who you're going to go to the dance with. Those were not major concerns about my biological family. Mm-hmm. But you always know you're not the same. You just know, you see your cousins, aunts, uncles. I mean, they were all fabulous.
Yes.
And they didn't call me the adopted child or anything. I mean, back then, people didn't even talk about it. But there's just something inside, you're not the same. But it didn't, like I said, growing up in such a wonderful atmosphere, it didn't really bother me. Mm-hmm. But as I got older, I got very curious.
You were curious to know a little bit more about your roots.
Correct.
And tell me about when your wonderful adoptive mother, she passed away, mm-hmm. and you said that you found your actual adoption certificate, and a lot of it was redacted, except
my mother's signature, my biological mother's signature. And the interesting thing, my entire life, people have said to me, "Oh, you must be Italian. Oh, you must be." Well, I would always just kind of laugh it off. And her name was an Italian name. And I thought, oh my gosh, this so makes sense.
And then you went on to get married and you have two sons.
Right.
And so obviously, you know, as parents, then you're thinking about kind of what their legacy is and lineage is. And so tell me what brought you to this point where you began to actually reach out. So you've now met brothers and sisters from both sides of the family.
Right.
So first, you hired a private detective.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
Correct. I did on the internet. Talk about a leap of faith, sending your money on PayPal or however it was. And within 24 hours, I received all of the information on my biological family, my mother's side. Now, it helped because I had her name. Mm-hmm. But this lady that did it, who was an adoptee and found her sibling, her sister, 7 years earlier, and then just got the passion to help other families. She said, if you have the name, it's great. If you don't, I can do it. And just getting that, she emailed it to me and seeing names and places, and I was sitting in my office, you know, all teary-eyed.
Yeah, what was it like? Take me through, because that's a very emotional journey.
It is. You just think, oh my gosh, these names, these people, these places are me. They are me. And when I told my older son, Brett, I said, they're all in Boston. I mean, he wanted to get on the plane that night. I said, honey, we cannot stalk these people. We kind of need an invitation.
So how did they react?
At first, a little shocked.
This was your mother's side.
Right, my mother's side. I have one sister, 83 years old, still living. And I called her. I just called out of the blue and said, is this blah, blah? And she said, no. And I said, well, was Josephine A. Maroney, your mother? Yes. I said, well, I have every reason to believe I am your sister. Can you imagine being 83 years old, getting that phone call?
How did she react?
Well, there was silence. I thought, well, either she's hung up or she's fainted or, something's happened. And then her children, my nieces and nephews, called me and they all said, you have to come back here. You have to. So then Brett and I did get on a plane and we spent about 4 or 5 days in Worcester, right outside of Boston. And the most impactful thing for me was we saw pictures and, oh my gosh, this big Italian family and they eat and drink and we had so much fun and hugs. And my sister on the last day said, would you like to see the cemetery? Well, now, normally I wouldn't ask somebody visiting Arizona to go see a cemetery, but the ones back there are beautiful. Mm-hmm. And they have Civil War people there, headstones. So we go there. And she says, come over here, honey. This is our family plot. And Carey, when I still get emotional, saw my mother's headstone, I thought, oh, that's her. Oh. I'm there. I have found her. I had thought possibly one day I would find her or my family, but never in a million years did I dream I would be standing right there. So the whole family kind of, moves away and lets me have my private time with
What did
her.
it feel like when you were standing there?
Oh, like I was hers and she was mine. Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. And everyone, was hugging and kissing. And the whole family, those old Italian families in those mortuaries, they're all buried together. And so then they go, these are your grandparents. These are your great-grandparents. It was overwhelming, let me tell you.
Wow.
Yeah. It filled a place in my heart that I didn't even know needed filling. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. When you were flying back after that experience, what was running through your mind?
Oh, my gosh. Trying to keep all the cousins, all the names, where does everybody straight? What have I been doing? I mean, it was just overwhelming. I just kept thinking, thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So your mom had put you up for adoption because she was single at the time and
mm-hmm.
and there were some challenges and
right.
And so then still the other part of the puzzle for you was who was your father.
Right.
So this is where the ancestry comes into play. So
right.
Tell us about that.
Well, the Boston family had no idea. We went through albums. They, went through their brains trying to figure out, we said, who was he? So I get back and I get a ping on Ancestry that says, I just found out it's from a woman in Chicago. I just found out the man I thought was my biological father that raised me is not, and we are siblings. I said, you've got to be kidding me. And I knew it was on my father's side because she had no Italian, English and Irish, which is so we started yippee-yapping, of course, like
and
sisters do.
Was a Val.
This was Val
in Chicago. So you guys became sort of fast friends.
Oh my gosh. She said, I am on a plane to Arizona. And about 2 weeks later, she came. She stayed with us. It was so much fun. I mean, we stayed up till 2:00 every night, laughing, telling stories, just like a sister would.
And did you guys find a comfortability in that? It sounds like you had a natural sense of one another, which I find so fascinating about these mm-hmm. stories when right. you are connected to a biological family mm-hmm. member, even after, 72 years?
Right, exactly. Well, it's the old nature versus nurture. And, they're finding out so much more, Carey, with DNA. I mean, look at what the medical field's doing with DNA. And even with my sister in Boston, we had similarities. Val and I have similarities, and we'll say the same phrase. Now, when you grow up in a household, you would expect that when you grow up together. When you just meet at 72 and 78, you don't expect that. You think, what the heck is in the DNA to make us both say that?
So now you've connected with family members on your mom's side, and then your dad, who still remained a bit of a mystery. You find Val, and then there's still more to come with your story. So you also go on 23andMe and explain. I'm sure most people know what that site's all about, but kind of give a short.
It's exactly like Ancestry, and I would recommend anyone, if you're going to do one, do the other, because some people just do one or the other, like Val. So then she gave me her cousin, long story, she finds out who her father's name, our father's name is. And then about 2 weeks later, I get a ping on 23andMe that says, I just got my DNA results back and we are siblings, the name of our father.
Wow.
The last name. I said, oh my gosh, this God just must be saying, Darlene, I'm going to give you all these blessings at once. Just enjoy them.
Did you feel overwhelmed at any point, or like too vulnerable?
I don't know, as much vulnerable as happy. Val and I have talked to him. I'm going to meet him next month in California. He's younger than we are. The interesting thing, he had a very good comment. He says, my dad was the only one in his family that came, our dad was the only one that came over from Scotland. So he said, I never grew up with aunts, uncles, cousins on my father's side. And so he says, now I have 2 sisters.
Wow.
I know. So there have been a lot of tears in this whole thing on everybody's side.
It's interesting though. You have been very blessed with how this search has turned out for you, because I've done a fair amount of these stories, and it's a risk.
Oh, it is.
Because not everyone wants someone walking into their life after however many years and saying, we're relatives.
You're right. And when I've heard those stories too, and I think that was on my mind when I didn't pursue it earlier, but 2 very good friends, one you've had on your show, Paula, and another one had great experiences recently with one finding her biological father, and one a brother finding her. So I thought, they can turn out good. And now, Carey, people know my story. They come up to me and say, you are not going to believe this. We had that happen in our family.
What do you think this has taught you about yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. That I do have a lot of love in my family. That when these people embraced me and my family so much, I thought, that's why I'm a hugger. That's why I'm a kisser. I did. We go back to Boston, and these Italians, oh my gosh, hugs and kisses. And pardon me, and my son said, oh, Mom, this is so our family, right? I go, it is.
And at 72, even though you look a lot younger than that, but you openly share your age, but at 72, you now say you feel complete.
Right. It did complete something that it's an interesting phenomena that I didn't ever bemoan the fact, oh, boo-hoo, I don't know who eyes I have, who's this or that. Never did that because of the wonderful parents I had.
Yeah.
But once I found all of this, I thought, oh, there was that piece of my heart that wasn't quite fulfilled yet.
Yeah. And it's a delicate story to share, because I have very dear friends who have adopted children, and they are their parents. And I know the question runs through their mind, are they going to want to know, It's a hard balance because you
is.
don't ever want to disrespect those wonderful people who raised you, and those are your parents.
You're exactly right. And I've had, since this happened, some people that have adopted children that have said, you know what, Dar? Someday we're going to tell them who their family is and maybe even meet them. That isn't always possible. They don't always know. The adoptive parents do not always know. But these two different families did. They said, you know what? We need to give that to them someday as a gift.
You know, and just one final question. And this is not just about your journey or finding, a biological family, but just opening it up to a broader spectrum of people who might be watching or listening to this. Taking a leap of faith in any regard can be so scary. But what often people find is getting over the other side of fear is very rewarding. So
You're absolutely right.
What words of inspiration do you have for people thinking about overcoming something, no matter what it might be?
In any part of your life.
In any part of your life.
I think what I did, I prayed a lot. I really did. I said, oh man, especially the night before we went to Boston. I said, oh boy, please, dear God, let this be okay. I think if you feel in your heart it is the right thing, whether it's a job, a relationship, whatever it is, and it's a leap of faith, but if you get that gut feeling, that is so important. Don't listen to outside influences much. Go with your heart. And with us, it was just so wonderful. But I've always kind of dealt like that, going with your heart, because it's so easy to get sidetracked. But when you do that, I personally believe God just tells you, okay, Darlene, you're getting ready for a ride here. Let's go.
It's whether or not we listen, I guess.
You're absolutely right.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story.
welcome.
It's such a beautiful story, and I hope it does help to inspire people on so many levels.
Oh, thank you, Carey.
And I can't wait to see the rest of your pictures. Thank you, Darren. Thanks to all of you for listening and watching Carey Pena Reports. You can always find us online at inspiredmedia360.com. Take care.